I'm calling this segment Good News Friday. The tariffs in Trump's plan to put pressure on China is working. Of course, the media is so all in for globalism that they report the good news as bad news.
We have a new measure of how President Trump's tariffs have impacted the flow of Chinese goods coming into the United States. New figures show the volume plummeted last month, plummeted big time.
Already we're seeing ships coming from China half empty, containers half empty.
Well, that's just what the president needed to happen. It was short-term inconvenience for long-term change in our trade and manufacturing posture. Is the press really so dug in on hating Trump that they can't see any wisdom in this strategy? Now, if this dragged on for several months, yeah, it would be tougher politically and economically. But right now, Trump's approach is the right one. And from what I saw at the White House today, they are very bullish on where things are headed, especially with the team he has.
What parameters have you given Scott Bessent on negotiating with China this weekend?
We have to make a great deal for America.
Are you going to be disappointed if he comes back without a deal?
No, not at all, because we already made a great deal. We're not doing business with China right now. We lost $1 trillion last year with China, $1 trillion. So if you're not going to do business with them, you're not going to lose $1 trillion. But we lost. I want China to do great. You know, I'm very friendly with President Xi. I have great respect for him and for China. But we can't continue to allow them to do what they did.
Consistency, America first. How refreshing. And Trump's optimism is well-founded. After all, isn't it better that the United States is starting these talks with China's back up against the wall economically? Remember, there is no substitution for the U.S. market. And thanks to Trump's bold moves with tariffs, we have the leverage no other president dared or cared to use. And Trump's exercise of leverage was also evident in the UK deal announced on Thursday that he alluded to in those comments. Now, imagine if we had a news media that was actually unbiased, let's say even 50% of the time covering these stories. Because the president estimates that a trade deal with the UK will bring in as much as $100 billion to the United States. But of course, it's just dismissed by the usual crowd at CNN.
This was low-hanging fruit. This was, I would say, actually something the Biden administration could have had in terms of a trade deal with the UK, and they just didn't want to for a variety of reasons. The UK has been eager for a deal, too. There is not a trade deficit with the UK. It says a trade surplus. So it's a little different than the other countries in question here.
No kidding, Maggie. But Trump got billions of dollars for the United States. You get it? You get why that's a good thing? And if Biden could have done it, as she said, well, why didn't he? And more good news. After years of seeing native-born Americans get shafted in hiring, we finally have a president who's turning things around on that score. Because the number of employed native-born people has grown for 3 straight months by over 1 million last month, April 2025, while the foreign-born number shrank by 400,000. Also, as the bar chart illustrates, the number of employed foreign-born workers has dropped in 2 of the past 3 months. Told you it was Good News Friday.
And welcome to a special Friday night edition of Hannity. The left in a state of rage. Well, after getting absolutely demolished in the 2024 elections, Democrats, they had 2 options. They could have accepted reality. They could have worked with President Trump. They could try to find common ground. Nope. Instead, they woke up on November the 6th, 2024. They chose violence and anger and total rage. They have been completely unhinged ever since. Now, coming up, we're going to bring you the very latest from the pro-Hamas riots that are taking place in Americans' college campuses. Also tonight, she's back, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, once again, back in the news for every wrong reason during a congressional hearing. She actually forced a witness to play a game she called, quote, Trump or trans. I'll explain straight ahead. And later, Jimmy Fallon will give his thoughts on New York's #1 Trump hater, Letitia James, who is now in some potential legal trouble of her own and getting ridiculed by her own constituents. Take a look.
My question is for Tush James. Will you apologize to President Trump for wasting millions of dollars and the state of New York for a witch trial? And how does it feel to know that you will be in prison for mortgage fraud?
We'll check in with Jimmy Fala, and also we'll tell you about our upcoming Punchlines and Patriots tour. Tickets on sale today. We'll tell you about that. But first, here is, and that's along with Fox Nation, a quick review of the current state of the Democratic Party. Hours ago, several congressional Democrats, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, showed up uninvited at an ICE facility and breached the perimeter. Apparently, they wanted to secure the release of a violent criminal illegal, one of those gang members detained inside. This was supposed to be a bold political stunt in defiance of President Trump. But the Newark mayor ended up getting arrested, while the members of Congress were ultimately granted a tour of the facilities. Now, according to the U.S. Attorney, Alina Habba, quote, the mayor of Newark committed trespass, ignored multiple warnings from Homeland Security to remove himself from the ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey this afternoon. He has willingly chosen to disregard the law. That will not stand in this state. He has been taken into custody. No one is above the law. Now, this is a truly pathetic party filled with all this anti-Trump rage, desperate for attention, taken over by radicals. But tonight, this anger isn't just reserved for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. That's pretty predictable. Democrats also, they're even mad at themselves, especially Joe and Jill Biden, that they have now thrust themselves back into the public spotlight. But according to reports, the Bidens, they're broke. How could they be broke? Anyway, with the family syndicate. Anyway, desperately, they need a huge book deal to stay afloat, so they are going back to the well one more time. And, of course, they go back to the, predictable trashing Trump while hoping that every American forgets about Joe's horrific track record as president and his full-blown cognitive decline. Now, meanwhile, the Democratic Party's heir apparent, AOC, apparently she's been very, very busy. Fight the oligarchy, flying around on private jets with Grandpa Bernie, talking about and preaching about the evils of capitalism and climate change on a private jet. Anyway, and then there's Kamala Harris, who is still clinging on to relevance. During a written interview with Vogue magazine, Kamala served up yet another word salad, this one in writing. I mean, no excuse on that one. This time about artistic expression and the passage of time. No, artistic expression and its influence on politics and its ability to, quote, shape the conversation about where we are today and where we need to go. And if you need to go where you need to go, you need something to help you to go to where you need to go so you can go and then go home. And California Governor Gavin Newsom also working very, very, very hard to stay in the limelight, trying to say things he has never said or believed in nearly 30 years in the public eye. I don't know, maybe he can get Elon Musk to give him an AI brain transplant. Now, he's also now trying to distract from his abject failure as California's governor, a brand new website dedicated to fact-checking pro-Trump accounts on X. And just when you think that the left can't get any more petty and desperate, just think again. This morning, our old friend, poor liberal Joe, Morning Joe, couldn't find a nice thing to say about Trump's big new trade deal with the UK. In fact, they almost seem sad and disappointed that President Trump's trade negotiations are actually paying off, like $8 trillion in committed investments from countries and companies for the next 4 years. $8 trillion. Anyway, take a look.
Maybe there's a deal in Canada to happen. The same thing with President Sheinbaum in Mexico. I think you look for what's most likely. Most likely those trade deals are going to come from leaders that he's more comfortable with. And he certainly, again, says he's very comfortable with Keir Starmer.
Yeah, no question there. For President Trump, diplomacy is very personal. I mean, there's the degree of that for most presidents, but this one in particular, it's really whether or not he likes you.
This is relatively low-hanging fruit. If you can't get a trade deal with the longest-standing and loyalist United States ally anywhere in the world over generations, you're going to be in trouble when you're dealing with some of the more obstreperous countries around the world.
It just is nonstop. The state-run legacy media mob, Democratic Party, they just hate Trump so much. They're so addicted to this hate, seemingly rooting for America, and that means all of you to fail. They don't just hate President Trump. They also hate us, you, his supporters, and even other Democrats don't completely fall in line. You know, political differences no longer tolerated inside the Democratic Party. Take a look at how they're currently treating John Fetterman. They had no issues with Fetterman on the campaign trail, even though he was recovering from a very serious stroke. And by the way, he's done incredibly well. Thank God for him. And by the way, he was struggling to communicate during that campaign. But now that the senator has broken ranks and he's doing a lot better cognitively, a lot better, but God forbid he broke ranks with his party on just really a few issues, on the borders, on Iran, and on Israel. That's it. Now the knives are out for John Fetterman. One hit piece after another, one attack after another. Now Republicans are defending him. They don't agree with most of the other issues. Tom Cotton remarked, quote, John Fetterman and I have our differences, but he is a decent and genuine guy. The radical left is smearing him with dishonest, vicious attacks because he's pro-Israel, and they only want reliable anti-Israel politicians. Now, his fellow Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick also coming to Fetterman's defense, quote, it is time to put politics aside, stop these vicious personal attacks against Senator Fetterman and his wife and his health. While we may have many differences, we are both committed to working together to achieve results for the people of Pennsylvania and make their lives better. He is authentic, decent, principled, and a fighter. These disgraceful smears against him are not the John that I know and respect. Sadly, it's so revealing. Zero tolerance. This is the party of rage. The Democratic Party, the party of diversity of thought, no, that party doesn't exist. This is the party of censorship. This is the party of big government control, high taxes, regulations, broken promises, bankruptcy, climate change, no paper straws, no freedom. You can't have your air conditioner, gas stove, washer, dryer. However, private jets for elitists that are fighting the oligarchs, that's okay. Open borders that allows in known terrorists, murderers, rapists, cartel members, gang members, that's okay. Forget about the safety and security of the American people. And open jails for criminals, lawfare for people like Donald Trump and anyone around him, and of course, men playing in women's sports. The party of compassion, they won't even call or stand up for mothers that lost their children because of their open borders policies, or even a young man who beats cancer. None of it makes sense, but I guess rage doesn't make sense, does it? Until you realize the left wants to upend our entire system, replace it with a one-party, socialist, statist state, communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it. Womb to the tomb, cradle to grave, that's what their goal is. Everything else is just a means to the end, and the rage rules the day, every day.
Hey. Whoa. Yes. I'd clap too if I was staring at me. It's Friday, so you know what that means. Let's welcome tonight's guest. His idea of binge drinking is two yoo-hoos. Fox News contributor Tom Shalhoub. This well-tanned author once played a saddle in True Grit. Novelist and literary critic Walter Kern. He has hair like Beavis, and he'd never deceive us. Co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, Charlie Hertz. And she went from MTV to our MVP, host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy. That is a panel. Yeah, Brett, your all-star panel ain't. Okay, before we get to some news stories, let's do this.
Greg's Leftovers.
It's Leftovers, where I read the jokes we didn't use this week, and as always, it's my first time reading them. So if they suck, we'll put Joe Mackey in a blue dress and send him to Bill Clinton's house. All right. So Sunday is Mother's Day. Yeah. All right. Or as Elon Musk calls it, Sunday. It's the day Elon spends asking dozens of mothers, how did you get this phone number? The Bidens are reportedly considering a $30 million tell-all book deal. $30 million. Man, that's like $1 million a day for the rest of Joe's life. The book will include details from Jill's diary. I think we might have a page from it. So why do the Bidens need all this money? Well, according to an inside source, Joe Biden is going broke. And things are looking so rough, Joe's now sleeping in his car. So, did you hear that the new pope is not only American, but he's from Chicago? Which means, out of habit, he's already installed the club in his Pope-mobile. Try doing a drive-by on that. New York State's budget includes new laws that make it easier to involuntarily commit someone. Which makes you wonder, between these two, who's going to pick up the phone first? They're both crazy. This week we learned that Bernie Sanders' excuse for using private jets is that he doesn't like waiting in line. Well, I guess he's never going to bang Bonnie Blue. You know, I knew that was in bad taste, but it's such a good joke. A new study found that 28 major U.S. cities are sinking, and experts have traced the cause back to one man's recent road trip. According to a new survey, the toughest job in America is fighting fires. The easiest job? You guessed it, answering Kilmeade's fan mail. I like how they put his name on the bag. That was cute. Should give him that. California Democrats are proposing a mandatory retirement age for public officials. One lawmaker breathed a sign of relief when she found out the age was 540. On Thursday, President Trump complimented Pete Buttigieg for lovingly riding to work on his bicycle. What's more impressive is the bikes don't have seats. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. What's so funny? Meghan Markle revealed that she and Prince Harry affectionately call each other M and H to keep their relationship a secret, and not because it's short for moron and hoe. California Democrats stopped a law that made paying for sex with a 16-year-old a felony. I wish I was alive to see this, said one man. Oh, my God. A lot of MJ fans here. A woman in China claims she got herpes at a karaoke bar by holding the microphone too close to her mouth. Wow, that's a better excuse than the one I use. I usually tell people I got herpes from Carrot Top. I'm joking. It's just a cold sore. Burger King is facing a lawsuit from customers alleging their Whoppers are way smaller than advertised. Meanwhile, me too. It's not going that way. Meanwhile, cannibals are suing Wendy's because the burgers aren't made out of redheaded girls. Yeah, so you thought it was going to be a dick joke. I made it about eating young redheaded girls. And finally, on Thursday, President Trump detailed the framework of a landmark trade deal with the UK. He announced we're opening up the UK to American goods, especially products like beef. And first to go will be these 5 cows. All right, so we're roughly 4 months into Trump's second term, which means it's about time for a hit piece on the First Lady. And there you have it, the New York Times taking the new First Lady to task for not being involved enough in the White House duties. After all, Jill Biden ran the country, and Michelle Obama ran the weight room. Of course, if Doug Emhoff were the First Lady right now, the Times would be writing puff pieces about how he goes out of his way to pay for the staff's abortions. The Times bashes Melania for only spending 14 days in the White House. But can you blame her for not wanting to fully move in until they fumigate Hunter's quarters? Here's one of their complaints. Quote, Mr. Trump has taken to performing some duties that typically would fall to a First Lady. She's not the one carefully selecting light fixtures, redesigning the Rose Garden, greeting tour groups, or hosting receptions. He is. So that's an interesting take from a bunch of lefties. The First Lady isn't tending to ladylike duties, but the man is. You know, it says something about Trump when you got the Times defending traditional gender roles. They say gender is a spectrum and then turn right around and say a man shouldn't do interior decorating. That'll be news to the homosexuals I hired to redo my basement. I'm adding a pommel horse to the bondage room. I think Kudlow's gonna like it. But what they're really saying is it's hard for us to trash Melania when she offers us so little to trash. They're so addicted to being mean girls, now they're getting meaner because she's not giving them a chance to be mean. Because for sure, if Melania was redoing the Rose Garden, they'd give her hell for including thorns. So absent any real dirt, the Times wants to paint Melania as an anomaly, when in fact, she's as First Lady as you can get in style, sophistication, behavior, and role. This after 4 years of the most unorthodox First Lady in history. Jill ran the White House while orchestrating a cover-up for her half-dead husband. She meddled in foreign policy and cabinet meetings. Hell, she even demanded that the world believe she was a real doctor. She let her confused husband off stage, dictated when and where he could go, and controlled media access. Did the media ever probe into that? No. When the media would turn their biased eye to Jill, it was only to fawn. It didn't bother them that Jill was effectively the president, despite nobody voting for her. And while they coddled her, they mocked Melania, and then complain when she leaves them high and dry. Maybe she thinks, hey, I didn't sign up for this. You know, like when I was on Outnumbered.
I remember that.
Consider that during her husband's first term, she wore a raincoat with a slogan the press didn't like, and it became an entire news cycle. A raincoat. And unlike Joe, she was able to put it on all by herself. Meanwhile, Dr. Jill wore stuff like this. Seriously, who is her stylist? The Riddler? The contrast is stark. Jill got all the accolades and no scrutiny. Melania, no accolades, all scrutiny. If I had an entire industry devoted to nitpicking every single thing I do and say just because I married somebody they despise, I might need some private time as well. That's why I dumped Taylor Swift. The Dems love to say they're the party of women, unless it's a woman who thinks for herself and quite literally does her own thing. In fact, Melania is the polar opposite of what the Dems want in a woman. See, women should think the same, scream about the same causes, and vote the same way. It's why so many Democrat women look like this and not this. So what if Melania would rather be seen and not heard? The Dems just want you to be one of the herd. Well, we've only got one lady on the panel, so Tom. I kid. Kennedy, I have to go to you first.
Okay.
Because I find it interesting that there's nothing they can pin on her, so that becomes the flaw. They're like, I don't know, we have nothing to say about Melania. Well, maybe that's a problem too. She's not doing anything.
Well, yeah, and thank God she's okay. It's not like Kate Middleton, because if you remember in the UK, when she was missing, people drummed up all of these conspiracy theories and really bullied her. And it never occurred to them that, you know, maybe she has cancer, and she did. And the same kind of bullying, they were like, you're just making that up. And she's like, no, I actually have cancer and it really sucks, and just leave me alone. And eventually they had to eat crow and go away. She telegraphed that that's what she was going to do. You know, it's like, if you're being bullied, and why would you sit there in the same context and just take it for the sake of taking it? So she told people, I'm going to live in Florida. I'm going to be in New York with my son when he needs me while he's in school. And when I'm needed in Washington, I'll go there. Guess what? They have not been on the public teat for 60 years.
Yes.
They actually have their own money, and she can afford to fly wherever she wants, when she wants to. I'm sorry, I thought that was feminism.
Yes, and Tom, they can't believe that she would want to spend her time in D.C., which is the nation's capital and armpit.
That's true, and I'm a noted feminist, Greg.
Yes.
I think, I mean, it's amazing that the New York Times, the only way they can get anybody to look at their articles is if Trump, you know, trumpets them, and he calls them the fake New York Times. And I think they were goading him. This was trolling Trump with the idea that he was doing women's work.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And so they think they're going to get him, and he's going to call them the fake New York Times. They think Trump is so shallow that if they say that he's redecorating the White House, he's going to get mad. But we all know that Trump loves to redecorate, and we know he does the decorating because have you seen Trump Tower?
Yeah.
He definitely decorated that apartment. That's not Melania. That's totally Trump.
Yeah, he loves to put gold everywhere. Yeah. So, speaking of gold, you're looking mighty tan, Walter. Yeah. So, I don't know where to go with that.
I know. It's stunning. And
it is.
A lot of
overwhelming. Can you compare and contrast our two first ladies in the past 8 years? We had Dr. Jill. Melania, Dr. Jill, Melania. It was like a Melania sandwich.
Okay, I have a lot to say on this. I'll say it quickly, cut me off when I get too much. First of all, usually when you're the president's wife, the White House isn't your fourth worst house.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Number two, if I had the ability to have my wife be away, but know through bodyguards at every second exactly where she was and what she was doing, I would tell her to go have fun too.
Yeah.
You know, so secondly, yeah, exactly. He's not wondering what she's doing. I mean, he's probably got a little camera in a vest of a guy watching every moment. Hey, Melania, you picked a good time to go to the bathroom. This is Donald. But anyway, the other thing is, did you see her at the inauguration? She had that hat that covered her eyes. She had this, you know, she looked like a cross between a supermodel and an assassin.
Yeah. She was Lee Van Cleef.
She's off on missions, baby.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a wife like this who's able to penetrate foreign governments and embassies and the highest reaches of, you know, closed societies, you put her on missions. Jill wasn't capable of missions. Nobody wanted her there. And when a first lady is around the house a lot, that usually means there's something wrong with the president.
Yes.
And this is his best argument for I'm capable. I don't need even my wife around. You know, she would be doting there if she thought he was going to say something wrong or drool, you know, whatever.
It's a good point. It's like, Charlie, Melania is a first lady. Dr. Jill was a visiting angel.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that gangster hat that she wore at the inauguration was kind of the message to everybody that she had had enough of this and she wasn't going to play their games again.
Billy Jack.
Yes. Yeah.
It's either Lee Van Cleef or Billy Jack. Billy Jack.
And so, you know, most of the people that go into the White House, you know, this is the pinnacle of a lifetime spent in politics. And for these people, for the Trumps, it's this is a diversion from an incredibly accomplished life that they had led before this. And this is completely different. They're bigger than this spot right now. And, you know, I love that all of Melania's detractors speak 4 languages less than she does.
Yes.
And they have no accomplishments in, say, the fashion world that she has. And I think that I think they're threatened by it. They don't know how to wrap their brain around it, because the idea that anybody would be in that position who doesn't worship at the altar of politics is somebody that they can't control. And that's what, of course, we all love about both of the Trumps.
Yeah, and also, they always say D.C. is Hollywood for ugly people.
Right.
And why would Melania hang around them? Melania posed nude. I would never want to see any of her detractors naked.
It's Hollywood for ugly people, but also losers who have never actually accomplished something in the real world.
Right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.